So today I want to discuss a topic that is deeply personal but also relevant to many: the long-term psychological impact of trauma, especially from domestic violence. Trauma from domestic violence or abuse isn't just from physical harm. It's about the deep psychological wounds that can linger for years. Research shows that survivors of prolonged trauma often develop complex PTSD, a condition that goes beyond the typical PTSD symptoms. CPTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, involves more than the typical PTSD symptoms. It involves emotional pain, difficulty trusting others, and a distorted sense of self-worth. The effects of this trauma are profound and can manifest in ways that may surprise you. But before we get into it, let me introduce myself. I'm Jennifer Hachia, and on this channel, we explore the complexities of psychology and manipulation in both relationships and professional settings, and then we discuss it in the comments below. So if that feels interesting to you, you are welcome to subscribe. And if you are already a regular watcher, hello there. Now let's dive into it. So let's expand on dissociative amnesia. One of the most striking ways that trauma affects us is through something called dissociative amnesia. Imagine your brain as a vault. When something traumatic happens, your brain locks away certain memories to protect you from the overwhelming pain. But here's the catch: these memories are not just gone forever. They are just hidden, and they can resurface when you least expect it. According to research by Lanius, Vermiton, and Payne, these memories can be triggered by something as simple as sound, scent, or a familiar setting. For example, imagine walking into a room and suddenly being flooded with emotions and images from a past traumatic event. It's disorienting and often terrifying because your brain is reacting as though the trauma is happening all over again in that moment, even when you logically know that it's in the past. I can relate to this on a personal level. If you also struggle with this, you might be remembering some moments where you flinch or react strongly to something that others might consider minor. Well, these reactions aren't just random. They are your brain's way of protecting you, even if it seems like an overkill. For many, including myself, these responses can feel a bit embarrassing or even very frustrating, but understanding where they come from can be the first step towards healing. So I'm going to give you an example. Seeing messages left on read or with a double blue check mark on WhatsApp is something that would trigger me a lot in the past. I would look at it, and at the time I was living by myself, and I was spending a lot of time by myself after the end of a very, very traumatic relationship. And so when I saw that people saw my message and they would just leave me on read, even if it was just for a few hours, I would get wildly anxious. Wildly. My brain would just shut down. And I wouldn't understand why, because it's just a blue check and it doesn't really mean anything, because it doesn't mean that the person is not going to reply to you. You know, it's not that I wanted an instant reply. It's just that my body was reacting in ways that I couldn't really understand. And then one day I realized why this was, and for me personally, it was a fear of abandonment. It was a fear of that silence between me sending a message and the other person reading it or responding to it, or taking long to respond to it, would mean that maybe I said or did something wrong that made them not feel an instant reply triggered right away. If only I could say something that would inspire them with a great response or a vulnerable response, or just a response that would make them open up as much as I was opening up. Because deep down, what I wanted was emotional connection, a connection so genuine that it wouldn't make me feel like I had to question it every step of the way. And when I talk about connection, I'm not just talking about while dating. I'm talking about even friendships. I was feeling these emotions inside of me, even in friendships. And this lasted for a long time, years, until I realized that I had gone through things in the past that I couldn't even remember, related to silent treatment, related to neglect, that once they came back to my consciousness and I was able to address it, I realized, oh, this is why I'm having this reaction. Okay, it's a trigger and I can address it. So this is my short story of the day. Of course, I realized that these things were a trigger with the help of therapy. And this is what I'm going to talk about next. Let's talk about how we can address these issues, or how you can address these issues. So one of the most effective ways to work through trauma is through therapy, specifically trauma-informed therapy. Reading might also be a great way to gain insights in how to start piecing one's self back together after being so hurt. And of course, in the ideal world, combining therapy with some reading and with some homework can help provide the tools to manage these triggers and gradually integrate those painful memories in a way that doesn't overwhelm the individual. We should not avoid our triggers. We should find a way to address them head on in order for them to one day become nothing but just a fleeting thought, a passing memory. But therapy is just one part of the puzzle. Support systems are equally important. So according to Campbell et al., integrating mental health care into primary care settings can be transformative, but also surrounding yourself with a support system, people that understand you and that will be patient with you throughout the way, is also a very important step towards healing. And you can find the support groups, if not in person, maybe online. So the most important thing is to not self-isolate. Now, I would like to pose a question to you. Have you ever experienced a trigger that took you back to a traumatic moment? And how did you handle it? I think it's important for us to share our experiences, not just to vent, but to understand that we're not alone, and in a way create in the comment section a community where we might also find our little support system. So feel free to drop your comments below, and I would love to hear your stories. Also, if you want to listen in depth to other things related to healing, please feel free to check out the Ego Next Door podcast, where I discuss all of these topics more in depth. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and there will be another video linked right here if you want to watch another one of my videos, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!